Good morning, everyone. It's a nice day, cold, but I'm so glad that you all are here. I'm Commissioner Brian Bishop, Commissioner of Military Affairs, Veteran Services for the great city of Somerville. Welcome to the 2019 Somerville Heroes Salute. This event has grown exponentially in the last 4 years since I was fortunate enough to come on as commissioner, and I'm so glad that all of you have showed out today to support the families and also to honor the memories of these wonderful, great Americans that we're going to hear about today. You're in for a real treat. We are waiting for a couple of honorees, actually, who haven't shown up yet, but we're going to go ahead and begin. And if you would all please rise for the singing of our national anthem by the North Shoreman Barbershop Chorus.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red above bursting in the air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Another big round of applause for the North Shoreman Barbershop Chorus. You'll be hearing from them again a little bit later. It is now my honor and privilege to welcome to the podium Tom Lane, the former commander of the James A. Logan Post here in Somerville, with this morning's invocation. Tommy?
Uncover. Our Heavenly Father, we deem this a fitting time to pay our respects to our departed comrades. As we stand with bowed heads in reverence to them, let us remember the good deeds they accomplished. Let us revere them as good soldiers who fought the good fight in a just cause. Let us silently pray for peace, the peace that passes all understanding. And let us in mind and soul consecrate our hearts and lives to the real America, the land of the free and home of the brave, the American worth fighting for. As we stand in silence to our departed comrades, may we sincerely say, may their souls rest in peace. Let us also remember the POWs and the MRIAs still unaccounted from the wars and conflicts. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Tommy. As you all know, it's Veterans Day weekend. And it's a time for us to pause, to remember, but also to celebrate. There are so many who have served this great nation, who have risen to the challenge, who have left their homes and their families to go off to foreign lands to fight for freedom, to defend democracy, and to defend the United States of America. We are honored to have with us today veterans of all eras present, and I would like to ask that all of our veterans please stand to be recognized. Thank you so much for your service and your dedication. We're also honored to have with us many distinguished guests. First and foremost, the families of our honorees. A few months ago, actually some of them actually up to a year ago, petitioned to have their loved ones, or their heroes, to be honored in this ceremony. They can be identified by the medallions that hang around their neck. And that medallion represents the excellence and the memory of their loved one and their hero. We're also honored to have with us members of our city council, not Board of Aldermen, city council. I had to practice that 5 times this morning before I got up here to make sure I didn't say the Board of Aldermen. No, it's not. The Somerville City Council, President of the Board, or the Council, Katiana Valentine, Ward 7. You can clap, that's fine. We got a long time to be together today, folks. Please just keep it going. Also, we have Ward 3, Ben Ewan Campen. City Council at Large, Bill White. I'm glad I didn't write these down. I just look at you. Ward 2, J.T. Scott. City Councilor at Large, congratulations, Councilor Willem Bach. You're Vice President of the City Council in Ward 1, and Army veteran, ladies and gentlemen, Matt McLaughlin. And the Mayor Emeritus of the great city of Somerville. I've had an opportunity to talk to this gentleman on several occasions. He was the first Profile and Courage recipient in my tenure, and he represents such a wonderful tradition here in this city. And I say this directly to you because you are my hero for what you've done for this city. Ladies and gentlemen, Mayor Emeritus Gene Brune. And I didn't forget this city councilor. I didn't. This is a true showman. Don't laugh at me. But there is one city councilor that ever since I got here, she always makes me laugh, especially when I'm standing in front of the council at budget time. And those of you in the room who are department heads understand that angst. We stand up there, but she always says that I almost make her sit at attention because when I talk to the city council, I'm always talking like this. And it scares her. But ladies and gentlemen, we have no better representative in this city than Councilor at Large, Mary Jo Rossetti. And she's holding a child. It's wonderful. Oh, JT brought the future of Somerville to the thing today. That's fantastic. And he's behaving so well. You taught him well already, didn't you, sir? Fantastic. Again, we're going to be here a while. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor and my privilege to introduce someone who always has the backs of veterans. He's someone who goes the extra mile to ensure that our veterans are taken care of. He supports me, he supports all of our veterans in the city, and he is our true standard bearer. Ladies and gentlemen, after being elected to a record 9th time here in the city of Somerville, ladies and gentlemen, Mayor Joseph A. Curtatone.
Good morning. Thank you, Brian. And it's great to be here with all of you today as we pause and honor and celebrate some of those veterans, both those who have served and those currently serving. But I do want to first say something about the veteran standing near me, Veterans Commissioner Brian Bishop. I've had in 24 years in public office the honor and the privilege of serving with some really remarkable people who work tirelessly day in, day out to serve our veterans. And there's a whole list, but going back to when I started serving, Mickey Curtin and Walter Perro and Frank Sinesi, Kathy Carey and others, and Brian Bishop for the last 4. And when we hired him, we had no idea he was an incredible tenor as well. Brian's going to be leaving us as our commissioner, and we're going to be sad to leave him. But I wanted to take the opportunity because these ceremonies here, and many of you have come up to us in elected office and thanked us. The person you really need to thank are the people in the room from the Allied Veterans Council, the Committee on Commemorations, but this gentleman right here, an Air Force veteran himself, for what he has done tirelessly in his time here to help us better understand how and when we memorialize and salute and how we celebrate and be joyful for those who have served or paid the ultimate sacrifice in their families. So please join me in giving a thank you round of applause to Brian Bishop. And we're still going to recruit him to do the singing at many events. Hopefully you're singing today, Brian, because you're remarkable. The move to Veterans Day established a day to not just remember those who lost their lives in military service, but really to honor and thank our living veterans. So today we'll be recognizing Somerville veterans who served in World War II, in Vietnam, and Iraq, Afghanistan, as well as veterans who are now a part of Somerville police and fire departments, our first responders. And we're also honoring a dear friend of mine and servant of this community, and so many, Bishop Henry Moultrie II, who served our country in Vietnam War, and then has served the community now for 5 decades, 45 years as the pastor and founder of the Mission Church of our Lord Jesus Christ. Veterans Day, as will be stated over and over today, reminds us to pause, to think about the sacrifices veterans have made and to appreciate, really appreciate and absorb their service. But it should be something we're aware of year-round. Our veterans put their lives and safety on the line and let family and friends behind during their service. And there's no adequate thank you for the sacrifices they have made. So while we take time today and on Monday to publicly thank and celebrate Somerville's veterans and veterans across this land, I hope that we'll continue to honor their service through the year. But for me personally, and on behalf of the city community, I do want to say to the CANTY family, the Sullivans, the Mortons, the Cliffords, Woods, and Pointers, to the Pefines, to Officer Lambert, Lieutenant Mike Marino, and Bishop Henry Moultrie II, thank you for your service. You honor us with your service, with their sacrifice, and your memories, and we will never forget. God bless.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Ladies and gentlemen, lunch is now served. It is my honor and my privilege once again to welcome, as part of today's ceremony, one of the premier barbershop choruses in this region. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the North Shoremen.
Every rolling stone gets to feel alone when home sweet home is far away, away. I'm a rolling stone who's been so alone until today, because I'm gonna take a sentimental journey, gonna set my heart at ease. I'm gonna make a sentimental journey to renew old memories. I got my bag, I got my reservation, spent each time I could afford, just like a child in wild anticipation, long to hear that all aboard 7, that's the time we leave at 7. journey, why did I decide to roam? I'm gonna take a sentimental journey, sentimental journey home, sentimental journey home, sentimental journey home, my journey home.
You ready, boys? Go get it, baby. This land is your land.
This land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me.
As I was walking that River Highway, I saw above me, up in the skyway, I saw below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. You're a grand old flag, you're a high-flying flag, and forever in peace may you wave. You're the emblem of the land I love, the home of the free and the brave. Every heart beats true for the red, white, and blue, with never a boast or brag. Should old acquaintance be forgot, keep your eye on that grand old flag. We'll be back. Thank you.
It has been my honor and my privilege to work with the petitioners for these awards this year. Every year, as I've said, we've stepped it up a little bit, and the stories that each of you have told, either through interview or through just your one-on-one conversations with me or the written word, tells a story of a lifetime of an individual who gave themselves to their country, their community, and in their families. It gives us a unique opportunity to get to know our honorees through the memories of these families. I hope you're all as moved as I was as I got to know these wonderful people through their stories. They represent what is good, what is great, what is honorable in this country. It's also my pleasure now to introduce to you one of the commissioners from the Veterans Commission on Monuments, Memorials, and Dedications to read about our first nominee. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Elizabeth Minahan.
To serve in the armed forces is a sacred duty. Our servicemen and women work tirelessly to support and defend freedom and democracy around the world and here at home. They are ordinary Americans serving under extraordinary pressure and circumstances. Most came back to their hometowns and raised families and lived out their lives, contributing to the moral fiber of their communities, and were role models and mentors. However, many made the ultimate sacrifice and are memorialized in our hearts and minds as our Somerville heroes. Our first honorees represent the first of two families we recognize today. The sons of Irish immigrants, they answered their nation's call when America entered World War II. One brother, Eugene, had already served and gotten out of the service prior to World War II. When America was attacked on December 7th, 1941, he returned to service and unfortunately lost his life. His younger brothers, John, James, and Frank, also joined and served at various times during the war. This family represents the true meaning of service and dedication and commitment to the memory of their brother. This is the CANTY brothers.
Service has always been a huge part of our family. I think back to the foundation, my grandfather came here from Ireland when he was 16 years old. He served in the U.S. Army in World War I, and I think that inspired the rest of his children. The oldest boy, Eugene, my Uncle Gene, he was going to BC, and he was doing very well academically when the war broke out. Much to my grandfather's dismay, if you will, he was very proud to have his first son in college. He told him he wanted to go in the service, and he had an opportunity to go into the military program at BC, which could then get him into Annapolis, which he did pursue. He went to Annapolis, and he graduated Annapolis that year. Because of the war, they graduated the classmen a year earlier so that they could serve. And he was a lieutenant junior grade on the battleship Maddox. It was a destroyer that was sunk by the Luftwaffe. The German Luftwaffe dropped bombs on them. And as a result of that, my dad immediately, I think he joined the service in late of 1942. He joined the Marine Corps. And by now, with great support from my grandfather, because they were following to serve the country that he had loved so much, coming here from Ireland, and he immediately supported my dad going in the service. Uncle Jim, another BC student, he became a lieutenant commander aboard the Pomfret, a submarine. He saw some heavy action in the war, but he wouldn't talk much about it. He talked about some rescues they made, talked more about the passionate acts, the rescuing people, downed pilots, rescuing prisoners of war. Uncle Frank, the youngest, was probably the more intelligent of the family. He was a chemist, and he went on in the corporate world and led several companies as CEO, and he retired, unfortunately died at an early age of cancer. They had the opportunity, after Uncle Gene was killed in the war, they had the option to get out. They didn't have to serve because they already lost a brother. And I guess that was a policy back then, and my Uncle Frank didn't have to enlist. He could have avoided it because he lost a brother. But all four of them, I'd almost say heroically enlisted, but my dad used to always instill in us that there's no such thing as a hero. We do heroic things because it's instinctive and reactive. Most look back on their actions later and say it was foolhardy. My grandfather was a police officer. My dad, my Uncle Jim, was with the FBI. There was a sense that we have to pay back. We have to appreciate what we have in life. And service is a great way of doing that, to serve your community, serve the people around you. And mind you, back in those days, my grandfather had the choice when he first was thinking public service. He worked for the sanitation department for a short time in the city here, which paid more at the time than police officers, a lot more. And he left the sanitation because he wanted to help people. He wanted to be a police officer and help people and do good things and serve them, more than just drive a truck and pick up the trash, was the way he used to say it. And I think that inspired the rest of the family. We all followed into the footsteps. I became a police officer. My two boys are police officers in the city. We have about 24 or 25 members of our family that are past or present employees of various police and fire departments. I think my family's lasting legacy could be summed up in very simple terms, and that's honor and nobility, service. They were proud to serve. I can't tell you how many times my grandfather used to always say, and then my father would say it, but I can remember my grandfather always saying, man faces no greater threat than his own ego. And I find that so true in life. We spend a lot of time, a lot of us spend our whole lives chasing the pot of gold that we've already found previously and don't realize we have it. We're always looking for more and better, whether it's wealth or power. I think the one thing I was taught was humility and honor and nobility, loyalty. And that all stems from service and the service they gave to this country and to their families.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sean CANTY.
This is to certify that on the 9th day of November, 2019, Florence Street and Pearl Street in the city of Somerville, Massachusetts, shall heretofore be named the CANTY Brothers Square. This honor recognizes their exemplary service to the city of Somerville, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and the United States of America.
Our next honoree was Somerville through and through. His granddaughter, Jessica, remembers him as a person who inspired her to never settle for second best and felt his story should be told. She is so right. He was born in Boston but raised in Somerville and spent his life here raising a family and instilling the importance of service to all of them. He loved a challenge and was always looking to do more. This was evident during his service in World War II, where he wasn't satisfied with just being a clerk typist. He volunteered to be a photo gunner on B-24s while stationed in the Pacific. His meritorious service garnered him 3 air medals. He also continued his service post-World War II by working with the Postal Service for more than 3 decades. This is Arthur Clifford.
Arthur Scott Clifford was born on October 23, 1921 in Boston, Massachusetts. As a young child, he moved to Somerville, Mass. With his parents and siblings. During his childhood, he lived in various places throughout the city. He attended Northeastern Junior High School and was a 1939 graduate of Somerville High. In 1946, he settled at 117 Hancock Street after marrying his high school sweetheart, Virginia Alberto. Arthur raised 2 children and then several grandchildren in Somerville, and he lived at 117 Hancock Street until his death in 1992. But before Arthur settled down, and with the outbreak of World War II, he knew he wanted to serve his country. After graduating from high school, he enlisted in the Army in 1942 as a private. He began his military career as a typist, but he later bravely volunteered for combat crews. Arthur was not the kind of person to sit around and passively complete his work. Everyone who knew him understood that he was a man of action. During his time in the theaters of operation, he completed 46 missions in the Southwest Pacific, totaling 368 hours. He is on record as having attained 5 zeros as a photo gunner working as part of the strategic bombing campaign in the Pacific. He also participated in the longest B-24 combat mission on record at that time, which lasted 16.5 hours. There was no job he couldn't complete, and everything he did with excellence. Due to his length of service, the time he spent serving on prolonged, treacherous overwater missions, and a number of other meritorious acts, Arthur was awarded the Air Medal. Additionally, he was awarded a Good Conduct Medal and recommended for 2 oak leaf clusters on his Air Medal. After rising to the rank of Staff Sergeant, Arthur was honorably discharged from the Army in 1945. Upon returning to the city, he began to work for the U.S. Postal Service, where he was employed for 31 years until his retirement in 1977. It's clear that Arthur lived his life in service to others, and did so in a way that reflected positively on his family and on his home city of Somerville. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jessica Clifford. Sorry we had you walking from Suffolk County. This is to certify that on the 9th day of November, 2019, Hancock Street and Highland Avenue in the city of Somerville, Massachusetts, shall heretofore be named Staff Sergeant Arthur S. Clifford Sr. Square. This honor recognizes his exemplary service to the city of Somerville, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and the United States of America. When I first spoke to Greg Morton regarding the honor of his family, I don't think either of us realized the journey that we were about to embark upon. One uncle, Eddie Sullivan, on his mother's side, shot down and perished in a prison fire in Tokyo. One uncle, Alfred Morton, on his father's side, crashed into the Pacific following a bomb run. His father, John, was in the Army and served with Darby's Legion in North Africa and was present for the battle at Anzio. Fortunate to come home following the war, he never spoke much about his experiences, but was very proud of his service. It's hard to believe this journey all began with a simple jacket.
My journey started with my father's Eisenhower jacket. It had been in the family closets for years, collecting dust. My sons told me that we should recreate it, and that began me down this road. Little did I know the family history of my father, his brother, and my mother's brother, and how they all intertwined. My goal now is to make sure that they are not forgotten and their stories are told. I started researching my father's jacket just so I could learn where he went. I wanted to put the tags and the patches and the medals back on. And in doing so, it led me down roads that I didn't know existed. My uncle Eddie Sullivan, he was the middle child. He enlisted in the Army in 1938 when he was 18. And he served a few years in the Army, and he was actually discharged in November of 1941. And a month later, Pearl Harbor happened, and in January of 42, he re-enlisted, this time to join the Army Air Corps. And he spent the next year or so training actually stateside in Kansas and Nebraska, learning to be a pilot of a B-29. The B-29s were just coming into production. He finally set off to the Pacific. He was stationed in the Marianas on an island called Tinian, and he was there about 6 months after the bombing the Pacific started. He was only there for not even a month. In April of '45, he was on his second bombing run over Tokyo. They were going after, they had an initial target was a Mitsubishi plant that built engines for planes, but it was too cloudy, and so they had to divert to their secondary target, and they were doing a low run, and they were towards the end of it, so the Japanese knew they were coming. So unfortunately, his plane was shot down. They did crash land. He and his crew did survive the crash, but they were taken prisoner. And then a month later, in May 26th of 1945, the war in Europe was already over. There was another large bombing raid of 500 planes, and they basically just firebombed Tokyo, and I think they burnt down 40% of the city that night. Unfortunately, the prison that he was in caught fire, and the soldiers who were, there were 62 American POWs who died in that fire. Unfortunately, my Uncle Ed being one of them. A month later, after the war was over, not a month later, but after the war was over in Europe, in the Pacific, they found the mass grave where these soldiers were buried, and they found my uncle's body, and he is now buried up in the Veterans Memorial Cemetery in Somerville. My father's brother, Alfred, when he was young, when he was 13 or 14, he was actually an acclaimed banjo player. He had gone, they grew up in Maine when they were younger, and he had actually gone to New York City to perform on the Fred Allen radio show, which was a big deal for people up in Maine. It was like, he was a celebrity when he was a kid. They moved to Somerville in 1935. He joined the war after Pearl Harbor. He joined in January of 1942, and he went right into the Army Air Corps, just like my Uncle Eddie. Again, he trained in the Midwest through Kansas and Nebraska, and he was eventually stationed on Saipan in November of 1944. Like Eddie, he was on his second run, and they had completed their mission. They were on their way back. They were 200 miles from Saipan, and they just went into the sea of the Philippine Sea. Don't know why. There were Mayday calls. There were eyewitness accounts of other pilots or radio operators hearing the call. They said they were having issues, whether they ran out of fuel or it was just damage from the flight. And the haunting part is my Uncle Alfred was the radio operator for that plane. So those calls were probably him calling out their location. And his body, unfortunately, was never recovered. In 1943, my father joined the service. He waited a year after his brother joined. He was the youngest son of the family. So he went right into the Army, and he enlisted in February of '43 and was shipped overseas in June, and immediately enlisted in a new outfit of the Army that was put together by Colonel Darby, and he was a ranger. He was one of Darby's original rangers. He trained in North Africa in June and July of 1943, and then went to Italy, was in the assault in Sicily, and then from Sicily, by October of '43, he was in mainland Italy, in Sorrento and Naples. they worked their way up through Italy, and they were in a large battle just south of Rome, in a town called Anzio, and it was a very bloody battle. It lasted almost 4 months. Unfortunately for the Rangers, they were in a battle where they were sent, the 3 Ranger battalions, 1,500 men, were sent to take a small town about 7 miles east of Anzio. Little did they know there was an entire Panzer division waiting for them. And so of those 1,500 men, only 440 came back. But they were at Anzio because they had been fighting in the mountains of Italy. They were called the 1st Special Service Force. No one in my family knew about this 1st Special Service Force. We all knew about the Rangers. My father was very proud about being a Ranger. So it's an amazing journey that I wasn't expecting. I just wanted to put my father's jack together, and I just wanted to find out where he went. And learning the stories of my 2 uncles was maybe the icing on the cake, because my family didn't know about those journeys. I think my uncles and my father's legacies are typical of a lot of people at that time, a lot of soldiers. I mean, in World War II, it seemed that every family had someone join the Army, join the Navy, join the Marines, went to war. And it's been fascinating to know that our family were heroes. And I mean, they were true heroes. And I just don't want that to be forgotten. And I don't want my kids to forget about it. And for the sake of Eddie and Alfred, I just think it's a legacy. It's a story that should be told to my family. And in a way, it's allowed me to bring my family closer together. Indirectly, subconsciously, or on purpose, I don't know. But it's a tie that binds. And I think it's important that they don't forget it.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Greg Morton and the daughter of Eddie Sullivan, Elaine Sullivan. I have to say that Greg was one of the first people this year that I actually worked with. We spent a lot of time together in the studio, but also a lot of time together on the phone. And I think it is appropriate to say that Elaine and Greg, you guys haven't seen each other since you were little kids. So this is the first time they've been together since the 1960s, would it be? Since 1961. So welcome home. And the citations to read. This is to certify that on the 9th day of November 2019, Medford Street and Sycamore Street in the city of Somerville shall heretofore be named Lieutenant Edward S. Sullivan Square, and that Jasper Street and Pearl Street in the city of Somerville shall heretofore be named the Alfred J. and John F. Morton Square. I've been fortunate this year to meet some, as I said before, some really wonderful people. But this next one, this one got me. It was a beautiful fall day. I took a nice long drive down to Marshfield, Mass. to sit with Rosemary Wynn, whose brother Bill Woods had been, who had served. And the big story about it is he worked in Clinton's White House mailroom annex at the Soldiers' Home in D.C. But I was not prepared for this journey, and I don't think she was either. I think she told me this wonderful story, and you're going to hear it, but I think that there's a lot to Bill's story that we're not telling here today. You're talking about a gentleman who served in 2 wars in 20 years, Korea and in Vietnam. 2 Bronze Stars, 2 Air Medals, 10 Battle Stars. in 20 years. And he says, hey, hell, that's what they trained me to do, in an interview that he did. But Bill Wood's sister, Rosemary, remembers that Bill always had a job, and he always wanted to serve in the military. And as a veteran of the Korean and Vietnam Wars, he was looking for a challenge afterwards. He loved the military so much he couldn't see why they didn't call him up for the Iraq War in the 1990s. He actually said that to Stars and Stripes, I kid you not. But in later life, he found an unusual calling that was one of the greatest honors of his life when he began living at the Soldiers and Airmen's Home, which is now the Armed Forces Retirement Home in Washington, D.C. This new president we had in the early 90s, you know, Bill Clinton, was having trouble with all the mail they were receiving. So Bill, along with other veterans at the home, swung into action and organized a team that transformed the home into the White House mailroom annex, where more than 50,000 pieces of mail a month were sorted and sent on to the Oval Office. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Bill Woods.
I was Billy Woods' little sister, and he is 7 years older than me. So he was always like the protector. I was always being protected from whatever was going on. Me and my brother Freddie, he took such good care of us. Always going to school, but always had a job. And whatever money he got at the end of the week, he always gave to my mother. Because my mother needed it, and he was there. It was family. Family meant so much to him. Even then, at a young age, everything was family. Billy couldn't wait until he turned 17 to join the Army. His days, he would keep saying, oh, no, I don't have that much time left. I gotta finish up this job. He always had some job in some store, groceries, whatever. He'd walk all over Somerville to get to one of his jobs. And so he joined the military. He turned 17. He was very, very excited.
It's a long way from the streets of Somerville, Massachusetts to the hills of Korea and the rice paddies of Vietnam. But it was the dream of Bill Woods to serve in the Army, and serve he did. He enlisted in 1947 and did one enlistment, got out in 1950 and planned to go back to school on the GI Bill. But when war broke out in Korea, Bill put his uniform on again and began a journey that would include 2 wars over 2 decades. When he came back into service, he became a ground radio operator that would put him right in the middle of some of the fiercest battles of each war. Battles to include the Battle of Heartbreak Ridge in the mountains of Korea and the 1968 Tet Offensive. He also braved the cold of Korea and the sweltering heat and swamps of the Mekong Delta and the jungles of the Vietnam Highlands. Over a 20-year period, he was awarded 2 Bronze Stars, the Air Medal, and received 10 Battle Stars, 3 from Korea and 7 from Vietnam. He retired from active duty in 1970, and after coming back to Somerville for a time, he found himself in Washington, D.C. at Walter Reed Medical Center for medical treatment. While there, he lodged at the United States Soldiers and Airmen's Home and fell in love with the place. He had found a home with people like himself who had served and loved the camaraderie that comes with service. But he was restless. He needed a new mission. So in 1993, he and a few other residents volunteered with sorting all the excess White House mail that was coming in for the new president, President Bill Clinton. They were so efficient that the Soldier and Airman Home was officially called the White House Mailroom Annex. They were also honored by President Clinton when he made the United States Soldiers and Airmen's Home a National Historical Site in 2000. During that ceremony, Bill Woods told of his service and love for America. Bill continued to live and work at the Soldiers and Airmen's Home until his death in 2013. He is laid to rest in Arlington National Cemetery among the heroes of this nation. We will never know all the heroic actions of Bill Woods, but we are a better nation because he served and believed in this place we call home.
I feel Bill's legacy is to family. I think he really felt as if being in the service all those years, he was protecting his family.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Rosemary Wynn, accompanied by Bill's nephew, Billy Woods. This is to certify that on the 9th day of November 2019, Linden Street and Somerville Avenue in the city of Somerville, Massachusetts, shall heretofore be named Sergeant First Class William D. Woods Square. This honor recognizes his exemplary service to the city of Somerville, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and the United States of America.
Like many boys in the early 1960s, Ronald J. Pointer wanted to be a Marine. So much so, he begged his aunt to sign for him to join up at only 17. His sister remembers him as a great brother who loved his family and his country, but was taken too soon. This is Ronnie Pointer.
The fondest memory of my brother was at one time he lifted me and my sister up over his head and then he just dropped us to the floor. He was a weightlifter, he had an infectious personality, and he was a ham.
Vietnam is a small country in Southeast Asia, located on the other side of the world over 8,000 miles away, and yet the mention of Vietnam brings back strong memories from many American citizens. My mother and father both have their own memories of Vietnam. My father because he was there, and my mother because of the tragedy it brought her. My mother, at only 13 years of age, lost her brother Ronnie.
As a brother, Ronnie impacted me for his love of everything, for his love of his friends, his family. Like I said, he was very, very protective, and he would not let any harm come to the family. His grandmother, the sisters, he just was very, very protective. And nobody could mess around with him because he was very, very strong and stuck up for everybody. I still remember the day that we got the news about Ronnie. A priest and somebody from the military came up to Southern Junior High, and they had called us into the office. We were wondering what we did wrong, so when we walked in there, we noticed the priest and the military person, and the priest said, your brother got killed in Korea. And I said, no, it's not my brother. He was never in Korea. He's in Vietnam. And we were 13 years old when we got the news, and we were in shock, and they let us out of school and we walked home by ourselves. I think of Ronnie being so young. What I really think about is he was so passionate about this country and patriotic that he joined, and he just wanted to fight for this country, and that's how he was about everything. So passionate, and unfortunately he never made it back home. I feel my brother Ronnie's legacy is to care for others and to always put other people first and his country before anything that he did. He was just awesome brother, which I wish he was still here today to know my son and the grandchildren and my husband, who also served in Vietnam. I wish he had gotten to know him, and his name is Ron too. But that did not happen. So he remains in my heart, and I think about him constantly. But I know he's happy up there with the rest of the family. He's in with the angels.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Deborah Kaplan.
This is to certify that on the 9th day of November, 2019, Belmont Street and Somerville Avenue in the city of Somerville, Mass. shall be heretofore be named Private First Class Ronald J. Pointer Square. Induction into the Iraq-Afghanistan Hall of Fame recognizes those individuals who served in the armed forces after the terrorist attacks on September 11, 2001, and came home to be an honored member of the community for their service to the nation and to be a role model and representative of all that is good in our community. This year, we induct the first member of the Somerville Iraq-Afghanistan's Veterans Hall of Fame. Our inductee served with the 75th Ranger Battalion and was a model soldier who distinguished himself both on and off the battlefield. After being medically retired from the Army, he remained faithful to the Ranger creed and his love for the Army, and even though he is no longer here physically, his memory will live on through his family, specifically his sister, Sherry. And it reminds us there is so much more we can do and must do for our veterans. This is PJ Pefine.
My fondest memory of my brother is, I'd have to say when we were younger, my brother was the type of person who always wanted to make everybody happy and comfortable around him. And so even from a young age, he would play Barbies with me and I would dress him up. Much to his demise, and rather it was not fair at times, but I definitely would comb his hair and put barrettes in it, and he would sit there like a good little doobie and allow me to basically destroy him. PJ was always impressed with the amount of service within this community, which when things took a turn for him later in, say, 17 in high school, he stepped up and enlisted into the military. PJ enlisted into the United States Army in 2005 and excelled. He loved it so much. In fact, he was the happiest he has ever been in his life when he served in the military. He went from basic training to airborne school, and then he went to RIP school and became a ranger, which he was very proud of, but also very humble about.
My name is Nate McCory, former squad leader at 2nd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment. And I served with James PJ Pefine. I remember when PJ first got to 2nd Battalion, and just like any new Ranger, not knowing what to do, feeling lost. But getting to know PJ, I learned really quick the type of person that he was. And I saw a lot of myself in PJ. And I think that's why we became best friends. PJ had a big heart. If PJ liked you, he would literally take his shoes off and give them to you if yours had holes in them during a 12-mile ruck march. And if you got injured and you couldn't complete it, he'd pick you up and carry you. That's just the type of person he was. He had a big heart and he cared for you.
What my brother left with me was strength and the ability to persevere and overcome. He always was rooting for you and telling you, you got this, you can do this. Unfortunately, in his short life, he was unable to do that, but because he cared about his friends, his family, and his country, and believed in the people of this country, he really was your cheerleader. He was constantly rooting for you and telling you what you can and what you should do and what dreams you should follow. Since he passed, for me, I feel stronger than I ever have. There's really no day that I don't feel like I can't handle or overcome, or, tomorrow's another day.
PJ loved being in the Army. He loved being an Army Ranger. It was a big deal, and it was a big deal for all of us, as it should be. He lived the Army values, and he lived the Ranger Creed. He always kept himself mentally alert, physically strong, and morally straight. And that's in our Ranger Creed.
Yeah, I have this strength with me, and also a kindness and a compassion that I'm able to see people the way my brother did. I'm able to hear people the way my brother did.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sherry Pefine. This is to certify that on the 9th day of November, 2019, James P.J. Pefine was inducted into the Somerville Afghanistan Hall of Fame. This honor recognizes his exemplary service to our nation during hostilities following the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, and his lifetime commitment to the city of Somerville, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and the United States of America as a role model of excellence and service.
This year, we have the honor of presenting two very special awards to the veteran police officer and firefighter who continue to serve this community with excellence and devotion. Prior to joining the Somerville Fire Department, Michael Marino served his country in the United States Navy from 2001 to 2007. Michael was named PAC Fleet Sailor of the Year and completed 2 deployments to Afghanistan. Lieutenant Marino is a registered nurse and currently serves as the Somerville Fire Department's infectious control officer. He was instrumental in adding Narcan to the medical equipment carried on all fire apparatus and continues to be involved in managing the fire department's Narcan program. Assigned as a lieutenant on the rescue company, he is well trained in all aspects of technical rescue. In addition to his Somerville duties, he serves as Emerson Hospital's Director of Emergency Preparedness. Ladies and gentlemen, the 2019 Somerville Veteran Firefighter of the Year is Lieutenant Michael Marino.
As they say, Somerville leads the way. Our veteran police officer of the year still serves in uniform with the United States Air Force Reserve and has previously served 4 years on active duty with 1 deployment to Afghanistan. Tom Lambert's dedication and selfless devotion to duty prompted Chief Dave Fallon to recommend him for this year's award. One specific instance occurred on the evening of January 24th, 2019, when he and 2 other officers were dispatched to a home where the family had experienced damage to the heating and water systems the previous day. The house was deemed unsafe to inhabit, and the family was able to secure a hotel for the night. Unfortunately, the next day the problem was not fixed, and the family had exhausted their resources and had nowhere to stay. The officers brought the family into the station in hope they could find accommodations for them. After contacting several shelters and the Red Cross, the officers came up short. A short time later, Officer Lambert announced, "We're all set. I found a place." Thinking that he had found a shelter, it was not until the end of the shift that everyone learned that Officer Lambert personally secured the room using his military discount. It does work, people. And his own money. The 5-member family, including a 7-year-old child, were able to spend the evening in a warm, safe environment with access to water and facilities. This selfless action is worthy of recognition. He refused any efforts to help with the cost, alluding to the fact that he'd been there before, and only hoped someone would watch out for his family should the situation be reversed. Officer Lambert is the true personification of protect and serve, as well as the Air Force core values of integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all that he does. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the 2019 Somerville Veteran Police Officer of the Year, Officer and Air Force Senior Airman, Thomas Lambert. And I want to personally thank Tom for coming back up here from Florida to receive this award. I did tell him he could have Skyped us, but of course, you know, it would have been from the beach with a drink. We would not have all been happy. But outstanding job, Tom. Thank you so much. Our final award, the Profile in Courage Lifetime Achievement Award, is presented to a veteran who has served in the armed forces and come home to continue to serve the community in which they live and has made a lasting impact on that community. There is no doubt that this wonderful individual has made a lasting impact on anyone who has the ability to know him. I had an opportunity to spend a few hours with you one afternoon. I can't say how much enough that I enjoyed that, and it touched my heart. This honor recognizes your exemplary service to the United States of America as a member of the United States Air Force during the Vietnam War and as a founding member of the Mission Church in Somerville, Massachusetts. Bishop Henry A. Moultrie II has dedicated his life to service for his country and to his fellow human being. He has been a shining example of true humility, dedication, and excellence in all areas of his life. Having served in the Air Force from 1966 to 1970, he witnessed the best and sometimes even the worst in life as he served in Vietnam, but he persevered. He returned to begin a ministry that would span more than 4 decades as he gave so much of himself to help others and build a legacy that will continue for generations to come. His endless love and compassion for others, coupled with his strong faith and patriotism, exemplifies his worthiness of this award. The The City of Somerville, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and the United States of America honor and thank you for your service. Upon his retirement, his congregation compiled his life through photos and music, and it is my honor to share it with all of you now. This is Bishop Henry A. Moultrie II. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the 2019 Somerville Profile and Courage Lifetime Achievement Award recipient, Bishop and Air Force Captain Henry A. Moultrie II. I think that the bishop would also say that he could not have done it at all without his lovely wife. He said that many times in our end. And if she's like my mother, she's sitting there going, mm-hmm. We know the power behind the throne. Again, it's been an absolutely wonderful day. As we leave from this place, we take these stories with us. We take the fellowship we have here as a community, as a family, as veterans, those of us who've served, those of us who continue to serve. That's what it's all about. It's exactly what it's all about. It's not divisional. It's not partisan. It's family. We are the greatest nation on earth. We are the United States of America. And it is because the people we honor today that we can sit here and say that. It has been my honor, my privilege, to serve this community, to serve this Commonwealth, and for 20 years serve this great nation. And as we go from here today, with the help of the North Shoremen, let us always remember to God bless America.
While the storm clouds gather far across the sea, let us swear allegiance to a land that's free. Let us all be grateful
Once again, the North Shoreman Barbershop Chorus. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a very safe Veterans Day weekend, and always remember, every day in America is Veterans Day, and every day is Memorial Day. And you see a veteran out there, thank them for their service. Thank you, and have a great weekend.